Greetings, adventurers, and welcome to another episode of the Paranormal Industrial Complex. I'm your host, Dallas Deluxe, and today, my friends, is a very special day because we are going to kick off a multi-part series on the Kennedy assassinations. That's right, assassinations plural. There were many, many people assassinated in conjunction with the JFK assassination. So here we go, let's go into it. So the other day, somebody I know was asking me, hey, Double D, what's the deal with this whole JFK thing? It's been 56 years since this whole thing went down, and yet here we are, people are still obsessed about this. What is the deal? I said, that's a very good question, but let's take a look at it, because to me, it comes down to two things, the setup and the scope. The setup and the set of characters. And I am really tempted to throw Scope in there, because after all, it was the most powerful man in the universe who was assassinated. But a few years earlier, Lincoln was assassinated by conspiracy. Nobody seems to care about that now, do they? So, really, it's the setup. Now, what's the setup? The setup is that, at least according to the government, we have a situation wherein a alleged lone assassin fired a gun, which, according to ballistic tests, according to the autopsy, according to photographic evidence, according to eyewitness tests, according to paraffin tests on Oswald, could not have been the murder weapon. It literally could not have. The bullets do not match. The trajectory does not match. Oswald had not fired any weapon that day, although later he's accused of firing two weapons. Very strange. Okay, and yet we're led to believe, we are insisted by the government that we believe that it was this one man who did it. Despite massive evidence to the contrary. You have over 60 eyewitnesses all saying that the shots came from behind a grassy knoll. And at the time of the shot, many of them rushed over there. When the Dallas PD was dispatched, all of them were dispatched there, looking for the shots that everybody said came from the grassy knoll. And yet, the blame gets laid on Oswald's feet. What the devil? Now you have a situation, additionally, where witnesses are coerced, cajoled, threatened, and sometimes killed when their version of things doesn't line up with what the government wants you to think. We're going to get back to that in a minute. So all this adds up to something where it doesn't make any sense. Additionally, you have government agency after government agency allegedly or seemingly complicit, if not downright involved in this whole situation, and it just looks really weird. So you have this crazy, crazy setup. Now, government agencies, they are not run by machines, they're run by men. So let's take a look at some of these men. Number one, you have Oswald. Oswald was a straight up spy. End of story. There's no two ways around it. He was part of the OSI's false defector program. He comes back and is seemingly working for pro-communist activities and anti-communist activities at the same time. Oswald is in all likelihood at least a double agent, and you know what? The more I look into it, he was one of the best. Now, he ends up dead by Ruby. Ruby was a well-known associate of Oswald. Ruby waltzes into the Dallas PD at what should have been one of the tightest lockdowns in human history and strolls right up to him and shoots him in the chest and kills him dead. Now, Ruby doesn't get off scot-free. However, while sitting in prison, he says, you know what, I'm going to spill the beans on everybody if you just give me a transfer to Washington, D.C. where I can be protected. The Warren Commission says, nah, we're not really interested. You can just sit and rot, Ruby. Ruby says, oh, well, I'm probably going to die in here. And, if I die, it's probably going to be of cancer. Now, shortly after making that statement, he's visited by an MK Ultra doctor and given an injection. Shortly thereafter, he's dead of cancer, a fast-acting cancer. A little bit strange there, people. Now, another associate of both Ruby and Oswald, David Ferry, mercenary pilot and a gun runner, played so well in the film JFK by Mr. Joe Pesci. Now, Ferry Ferry, seeing how, as he knew, so many people associated with this assassination, was understandably under investigation. And when the net was starting to close in, he made the remark that if he were to die, if he were to commit suicide, no one would be able to find a cause of death. Now, shortly after making this statement, just about as the trap is about to be sprung and he's about to be arrested, he dies of suicide. Cause of death, according to the coroner, no idea. Coroner cannot find a cause of death. Now, Ferry is a medical expert, so he can find many ways to off himself that do not leave a trace. And all the coroner could really find was that he was dead. Now, you're noticing a trend here, people. A lot of people dying in this situation. We're going to come back to that. And very quickly, another death, Mr. Lee Bowers. Train yard switch operator who had a perfect view of the grassy knoll. Now, he saw two men in the grassy knoll, suspicious looking. One of them was talking what looked into like a microphone, okay, right before the shots were fired. Now, Bowers is one of the few people who would not change his testimony about what had happened. And as a direct result, he goes missing for 2 days, comes back missing a finger. And really has no good explanation why. And shortly thereafter is killed. His car is run off the road by a black sedan and he dies. Although, not right away. He lives long enough to tell the doctor that he thinks he was drugged. So you have this situation here. If you put those things together, you put the set of characters, most of whom are either spies or mafiosos or both. You put them together and you have this situation where you look in one direction and it looks like you're looking in another direction, and you look back in that direction and it looks back like where you came from, and it just, nothing seems to be true, and yet everything seems to be true at the same time. It is bizarre. It is what the KGB used to refer to as a wilderness of mirrors. And the one thing that all these people have in common is that they're all dead. Almost every person associated with this situation is either dead by murder, dead by mysterious circumstances that look like murder, or dead by suicide that looks like murder. And all these people fall into three categories. Either they were a witness, like Lee Bowers, they were an intel operative, like Ferry and Oswald, or they were mafia connected, like Ruby and probably Ferry as well. I'm telling you folks, this is not just the tip of the iceberg. This is just the wind-swept frosting that gently coats and dusts the tip of the iceberg. It only gets weirder from here, so what can I say, folks? But stay tuned, it's about to get crazy. This is Dallas Deluxe. I'm signing off. Have yourself a great day. I'm going to head off into the sunrise, into this car, and into the business end of the paranormal industrial complex. Good night.